Listener discretion is advised.
Lachelle, put your phone down.
I'm listening. Yes, I'm ready.
We can see you. This is video.
Yeah. Put it down.
Oh my God, Mrs. Lang.
Oh.
All right. What are you doing? Are you playing Animal Crossing? Are you telling Corey what to make for dinner?
Phone.
It can't be on a phone.
Animal Crossing on a phone. Oh
Well,
my
you
God.
can, but it's not the full game.
Okay,
Well,
get on
it's
with
not a
it.
phone.
I'm ready.
It's
We're
not
ready
a
for your
phone
case.
game.
Okay. This was a fan pick
crappy about it.
brought to you by fan picker Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
And you will have definitely heard about it, but it's still important to cover. And we're not going to be able to cover every single part of it because it was a huge story in the news. And we're going to cover as much of it as we can cover.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be missing parts?
Oh, my God.
Okay. So Oscar Leonard Carl Pistorius was born on
Oh, God, this guy.
November 22nd, 1986 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Ever heard of it?
Weird.
His family was Afrikaner with some Italian ancestry. That means that they were like descended from like white Dutch people that lived in
they're
South
Dutch.
Africa
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they speak Afrikaans.
Really cool
and English.
language, though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like Dutchified.
Yeah.
It sounds really bizarre to the uninitiated, and I love it.
Yeah. When he was 11 months old, both of his lower legs had to be amputated below the knee because of a congenital defect. And he had been born like missing the outside of both feet and both fibulae, which I don't really understand that sentence.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
his feet were like just super narrow.
I
They're
don't
missing
really,
the outside bones of the feet.
I don't know. I don't know the answer, but there was something
We are doctors.
Fibulae.
that caused the when he was a baby, they were like, okay, this makes sense to amputate both lower legs below the knee.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Okay. So the fibulae. So you know the bottom part of your leg?
Mm-hmm.
You have the main part, and then you have a skinnier part on the out, like alongside it.
Mm-hmm.
That skinnier part is the fibula.
Oh, so this was a missing part of his leg
Both.
and
Didn't you
foot.
say so? Basically,
And
the outside portion. So it's just the two bones straight down in the leg, and just one bone out in the foot. Because your leg has a secondary skinny bone, and your feet also has secondary side bones.
So he didn't have that secondary bone.
He just had real skinny legs and feet.
Okay. Whatever. He's 11 months old. So he has no recollection of a time before his double amputation.
Gotcha.
At 13 months old, he was fitted with prosthetic feet, and within a few months, he learned to walk. So kind of, I don't know when babies learn to walk, but I feel like right on time. I don't know. Don't at me.
6. I don't know.
Yeah, there's such a wide array of what's like quote unquote normal in terms
Yeah.
of development.
Whatever.
I
He's
wouldn't
walking
even
as
know
a
a
baby,
range.
as a toddler, with his
Right.
prosthetics. Despite his disability, Pistorius excelled as an athlete throughout his childhood, and by the time he was in high school, he had distinguished himself at rugby, water polo, tennis, and boxing. Big athlete. Sports especially became a refuge for him during a handful of different childhood tragedies. So, number one, his parents divorced when he was 6, and whatever, no big deal, but that can be traumatic for some people. Also,
It's kind of a big deal.
I know. I just have so little sympathy for this man because he
Right.
is a piece of shit.
Yeah, but people whose parents get divorced when they're a young age is oftentimes traumatic.
Whatever. Apparently, it can be traumatic. I don't fucking know. So, his father was absent from his life. Oh, that must be hard. And then when he was 15, his mother.
Kenyon's like, mine was too, but I didn't kill anybody.
Yeah. I didn't become an abuser. It's fine. This one is tough. When he was 15, his mother, whom he was very close to, because she basically raised him as a single parent, died from a drug reaction following a hysterectomy.
Ugh.
So just kind of like
Oh.
a freak,
Yeah.
Right.
unexpected.
For what should be a pretty common procedure. And
yeah. Like my
Yeah.
mom had a hysterectomy when I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like 12. You know,
It's a
wasn't even-
standard thing.
Yeah.
What year was that? Was that in modern times?
Well, think about how old we were when we were 14.
Yeah, so early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay. How old we were when we were 14. Got it.
What year it was.
Yeah.
I followed it.
I know.
It's fine. So in 2003, after suffering a knee injury that forced him to quit rugby, the fact that he could play rugby with prosthetics is like pretty amazing because rugby is just like such a physical and violent sport. But anyway,
Probably helped that like he had prosthetics since he was
Yeah,
walking
he
at
like
all.
doesn't
Right.
know any other way to get
Right.
around.
But
Right.
still, rugby's intense.
So he discovered running and, quote, never looked back.
Run, Forrest.
So he was fitted with high-performance racing blades that were called flex foot cheetahs and began finishing sprint races in astonishingly fast times for a double amputee. He competed in both sprint events for below-knee amputees as well as non-disabled sprint events. So he was running in like
Just any
Yeah.
event. Yeah.
both.
Wasn't there controversy of whether those particular prosthetics
More
were like
performance enhancing.
We will get to it.
Okay.
Yes. He kind of got the name, like, he would later get the name, like, Blade Runner because of the, like, type of prosthetics that he used for running were called, like, racing blades, whatever. So after he became a Paralympic champion, Pistorius sought to enter non-disabled international races, but he immediately began encountering obstacles. So in particular, the International Association of Athletic Federations argued that the prosthetics that he used for racing, the blades, which were different from his everyday prosthetics, these were
They
like
were for
designed
running.
for running,
Right.
actually gave him an unfair advantage over non-amputee athletes, which like I kind of see their point.
Right.
I do too, because they're made for running.
They're made to propel more so than I think
A foot.
a foot would be. And also I don't know this for sure, but I am speculating that they might weigh less than
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
a lower leg and foot.
Yeah,
A
maybe
leg
have some
weighs a
spring
lot.
type technology. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I
you're
kind-
kind of like bionic at that point.
Right. I
In
kind of see their
Some ways.
point.
Yeah. I do. Is that
Not-
bad? I totally see their point.
Yeah. But ultimately, Pistorius overcame these objections and was allowed to compete in these events. So at the 2011 World Championships in athletics, he became the first amputee to win a non-disabled world track medal.
Wow.
He then qualified for the 2012 Summer Olympics, making him the first double-leg amputee participant and only the 10th athlete in history to compete in both the Paralympic and the Olympic Games,
Dang.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think one's athletic prowess or disability counteracts their shittiness as a human being,
Sure. No.
but
Surely not.
one for the record books. Okay. So these achievements skyrocketed him to international fame. He signed several lucrative endorsement deals and was the subject of numerous profiles in major publications. He was a big fucking deal. He was Blade Runner. He was on
Right.
the cover of magazines. Big fucking deal.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
Well, plus
And-
the controversy, like everyone had heard of him.
Right. There was controversy. He was like handsome. It was just everything. So these profiles highlighted not just his athletic abilities, but his intense and often risk-seeking personality,
Oh, great.
which risk-seeking can also be like a side effect of trauma and PTSD.
Totally.
There are a lot of like vitamins that come back from war who then, go through a period of like really high, intense risk-seeking behavior.
Could also be a sign of psychopathy.
It could also be that.
I don't know.
More
I
wine
prefer
to
not
get
to
through
ever
this.
risk anything ever.
No.
It's
I
too
don't
risky.
know, I don't know why you do that to yourself.
No, I'm good.
Why challenge yourself?
I
Right.
love my couch.
Yup.
Oh, God.
So as one 2011 New York Times profile put it, quote, he liked fast cars and fast motorcycles and fast boats, and he sometimes veered towards recklessness.
And fast women.
Well, no, don't say
And
that.
fast prosthetics.
I was just expecting that to be the next
I was
when
too.
thing
When
in
you,
this
when you
super
hear fast
misogynistic.
cars
yeah.
and da-da-da, that your brain finishes the sentence.
Right.
Goes to loose women.
Well, don't say.
fast women.
Na 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 na.
I know.
na.
I'm not referencing the victim of his crimes. I'm
Right.
referencing the shitty writing of this
Right.
article.
Okay,
Yeah.
correct. Fine. I'll
And the
take it.
gross phrase that is loose women.
Fast women. Get it right.
I know. I'm grossing you out.
Okay. Who sings Fast Car?
Tracy
Oh,
Chapman.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
different.
a phenomenal
So sad.
song.
Oh my God, I cry every time. Okay. A detail that came up often in profiles of Pistorius was a 2009 incident in which he crashed a speedboat into a submerged pier, fracturing 2 ribs, his jaw, and his eye socket.
Oh, stop, dude.
He got into
Fuck.
a major boating accident. And police found alcohol in the boat, but they didn't check his blood alcohol level at the scene because of his like extensive injuries. So then he kind of like got away with it because they couldn't
Then it
prove
was too late.
that he had
Yep.
been drinking.
At the
But like
time.
he had definitely fucking been drinking when he majorly fucking crashed this speedboat.
Also, a busted eye socket is one of those injuries that I just like. Ugh.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
So, several journalists who interviewed Pistorius around this time also noted that his intensity sometimes crossed the line into paranoia.
You don't say.
After a reporter named Jonathan McAvoy visited him at his home in Pretoria, which is kind of like an Afrikaner stronghold city in South Africa. It's north of Johannesburg. It's close to Johannesburg, but it's another major city, and like a lot of Afrikaners live there.
So it's a very white city.
Yeah, I mean, yes. More or less, yes. So he wrote in the Daily Mail that, quote, in Oscar's bedroom lay 1 cricket bat and 1 baseball bat behind the door, a revolver by his bed, and a machine gun by the window.
Honey,
It's
By the
all a bit
window?
much.
that's gross that it was by the window.
Yeah.
It's-
It's all gross.
It's a fucking bit much. And also, I don't know for sure, but like, I fucking know for sure that he definitely lived in like a gated
right.
complex with
He
guards.
does not need this
No.
level of. No.
You're not out there like, yes, in South Africa there's high crime and people, you know, criminal gangs can get past security guards and you know, rob or whatever inside complexes. That does happen, but like
That's paranoia.
it's a bit
This
much.
is fucking excessive. Yeah.
So in 2012, another reporter named Michael Sokolov visited Pistorius at home to interview him for a profile in the New York Times Magazine. In this profile, he relates a story that Pistorius tells him about grabbing one of his guns in the middle of the night and tiptoeing downstairs to confront a possible intruder after his security alarm went off. And this turned
Okay.
out to be a false alarm. But he's already like telling this profiler that like this is something that he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like with Zach, if I hear a noise and I like try to wake him up, he does absolutely fucking nothing.
Right.
He's like, it's fine, it's fine. Like there could be an intruder in the room and he'd be like, it's fine.
It's
fine.
the wind. It's Josie.
That's kind of why I don't want to fix my super old floors because I can hear Ray walking up the
Yeah.
stairs or like through. It's so creaky.
You need the
I love
creaking.
it.
Yeah. And like just for context, like we after living in South Africa, like we keep a golf club, you know, by the bed in case there's an intruder. I feel like that's a level of like in case there's an intruder precaution.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
honestly, that's
Not
mostly
a
for just like
machine
peace.
gun.
That's just for peace of mind. You're not like a machine gun is super offensive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean,
Yeah.
It's really
I think
aggressive.
you're nuts, but yeah, I get it.
Whatever. So it's a golf club, whatever. So This detail would take on an eerie significance just 1 year later.
Don't like an eerie significance. Don't like that.
In the early morning hours of February 14th, 2013, so Valentine's Day, Pistorius called for emergency medical help, claiming that he had accidentally shot his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, believing her to be an intruder.
Mm-hmm.
So Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp had been dating for only about 3 months at this point, so it was a very fresh relationship. He was 26, she was 29. She had been a very successful model since she was in her teens. She'd appeared in numerous high-profile ad campaigns, several reality TV shows. She's very well known in South Africa. She was the face of some cosmetic brand in South Africa, maybe Avon or something. She was a very successful working model.
Mm-hmm.
She also was a fixture on the Johannesburg social scene, and she had recently graduated from law school.
She was way pretty. I remember seeing pictures of her.
Stunningly beautiful and brilliant, and also kind. And she had overcome a lot of her own very serious physical obstacles in her past, because she had also been an avid horseback rider, and then she fell and broke her back in her early 20s.
Wow.
And she had to relearn how to walk.
Wow.
Oh, honey.
So they had that too. They were both high profile, very, very pretty people who had endured a lot and found each other, and, on paper seemed like a great
match made in heaven.
But, you never know what a relationship is like behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
So on February 13th, just a few hours before her death, because he called police the early morning hours of the 14th, she sent Pistorius a text message that read, quote, "You are an amazing person with so many blessings, and you are more than cared for." And he replied, "Stay tonight if you like." Pistorius would later recount how there's going to be a lot in here about his version of events.
Mm-hmm.
But
are we doubting this text message?
No.
Well, the texts are finite. That's kind of, you can't.
Well,
we're not doubting the text messages. They'd been dating for 3 months, and he invited her to stay the night. And they were sending kind of lovey-dovey texts. But there are also other texts that point to issues.
I still have Brian Laundrie fresh on my mind. So I didn't know if he took her phone and planted some misleading texts or whatever. Okay.
No, that's not not in this case. So I just want to preface it there's going to be a lot of his version of events, which
and she's not around to advocate for herself.
She's not around to advocate for herself, and his version of events are not fucking true. But we're just going to say them here, but take everything with a fucking grain of salt. So Pistorius would later recount how he was awakened by a noise in the middle of the night, and believing it to be an intruder and that Reeva was still asleep in bed beside him, he claimed he grabbed his gun. And then he heard a noise from behind the door within the bathroom, so the ensuite bathroom. And in that bathroom, there was also a separate little toilet room, which classy.
A water closet.
I know,
a poop door.
A poop
yes,
door.
a water closet.
I fucking dream of having a poop door someday. And he claimed to believe that the intruder had taken refuge in there, which that's totally what an intruder is going to do, is lock himself inside your toilet room with no chance of escape.
Right.
So then he fired 4 shots through the locked toilet room door, which why was it locked? 3 of which
was using the bathroom.
3 of which struck Reeva, who was on the other side of the door. He claims that he then used the cricket bat to break down the door. And then he claims he did this in a panic after realizing that Reeva was not in bed and putting it together that she was behind the toilet door. And she was who he had shot at. Okay. So investigators don't fucking believe his story. He's arrested because, like, he shot and killed his girlfriend. And his trial for murder began in March of 2013. However, it was soon delayed for several months so that he could undergo psychiatric evaluation at the request of the prosecutor in the case, after the defense claimed that he had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which, like, fucking take a number.
Yeah,
dude.
hi.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not an excuse for shooting
Absolutely not.
at any little noise in your home. So after the evaluation determined that he could, in fact, be held criminally responsible for his actions, the trial resumed. This is super high profile internationally. It was presided over by a judge named Thokozile Masipa and 2 other assessors who she appointed to help her decide on a verdict. And so in South Africa, there are no jury trials because it was too fraught post-apartheid.
Oh.
With race and everything and, like, you know, jury determination. I mean, it's fucking fraught here in terms of race. So everything's done with a judge. So much of the testimony in the case hinged on whether or not Pistorius had put on his prosthetic legs that night before
Oh, yeah. I
he
remember
walked
this
across
now.
the bedroom into the bathroom and fired the shots through the door. Because the defense claimed that he had not put on his prosthetics, and then they used this as, like,
Proof that his response was like, in the moment, I thought there was an intruder. I'm running. I'm getting to the bathroom as fast as I can to figure this out.
And they also tried to...
Wouldn't there have been evidence if he had not put on his legs?
Not necessarily if he took them off and staged it, that he quickly hopped out of bed and ran to the bathroom.
He could have staged it. It took a minute for the, you know, authorities to get there after she was shot.
Like, angle of the bullet holes would be at a different height.
Well, we will get to it.
Oh, okay.
So the defense is claiming that he didn't put on his prosthetics. It was like heat of the moment, whatever, panic. And then they also, like, really tried to emphasize his, like, quote unquote vulnerability by not having his prosthetics on and, like, I assume sort of using his arms to move and crawl across the room in case, believing that there was an intruder in the house, he would feel, like, vulnerable in that moment. The prosecution, largely based on testimony from the lead detective in the case, a man named Hilton Botha, and, like, we will get to him, argued that the angle of the shots indicated that he had, in fact, taken time to put on his prosthetics, which is, like, it takes a minute.
It can, yeah. I mean, it depends on, I don't know the style that he had bedside or, like, and he's also been using prosthetics his whole life.
Right.
So, like, that's obviously going to come more naturally to him than another person. But yeah, there's going to be an amount of time that will pass.
Right.
That's different than launching out of bed immediately and running to the scene.
Indicating a lack of panic and even premeditation. And also, presumably, he might have noticed during the process of attaching his prosthetic legs that Reeva was not in bed beside him. If he was like, oh God, there's an intruder, I got to put on my legs, got to grab my gun. And throughout that, like, she's not in bed beside him, not saying anything.
Like, wouldn't you assume she's in the bathroom?
Right.
That is more compelling to me than the, like, lack of urgency tied to putting on the prosthetics, because, like I said, he's been using them his whole life. It's almost like muscle memory to
But even if
move your
it
legs out of
takes
bed.
30 seconds, I mean, think
Totally,
about how
totally.
long 30 seconds is,
Right.
really.
Right.
If
and
it
so,
takes
You know.
10 seconds.
yeah,
Right.
and I personally think that if he did put them on, then he would have time to logically establish that, yes, his fiance or girlfriend, whatever, is not in bed with him.
Right.
And put these pieces together. I am not defending him. I'm
Right.
just saying that portion of it is more
Is
compelling
compelling,
to me
yeah.
than just he put the legs on. There's no way that he was running to meet an intruder or investigate an intruder. It's like, that's your muscle memory. He's putting on his legs. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, I feel like if If you think that there's an intruder and you also think that you have enough time to put on your prosthetic legs,
almost
then you're
wanna
going to
prepare-
put them on. Yeah.
Exactly. As much as you can to be able to defend yourself against an intruder. So, like, I get that. But all that said, yeah, this guy's guilty. And I think this is, like, I think it's bullshit.
I mean,
but,
he fucking knew that she wasn't in bed beside him. So, one of the many dramatic twists in this hugely publicized trial came when it was revealed that Botha, the lead detective, himself was facing charges of attempted murder stemming from a 2011 incident in which he and 2 other officers allegedly fired their guns at a taxi with 7 passengers inside in a drunken incident, end quote. So the lead detective was not great, but that doesn't invalidate this
his
case,
guilt,
I feel like, especially because Oscar Pistorius is white.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
he shouldn't have been on duty at all.
That detective should have been
awaiting
working.
these fucking charges.
That's true.
It's all fishy.
Right. So Botha was replaced as lead detective and the trial was briefly paused. When it resumed, much of the defense centered around an affidavit that Pistorius presented to the court in which he laid out, again, his version of events. In this, he's emphasizing his fear, his vulnerability. He mentioned that he was too scared to switch a light on in the house.
Okay,
well
which, then.
Okay, but, like, you have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The affidavit reads in part, quote, I grabbed my 9mm pistol from underneath my bed. On my way to the bedroom, I screamed words to the effect for him or them to get out of my house, which, like, then why didn't you turn on a light if you're screaming at them? And for Reeva to phone the police. It was pitch dark in the bedroom and I thought Reeva was in bed. I noticed that the bathroom window was open. I realized that the intruders were in the toilet because the toilet door was closed and I did not see anyone in the bathroom. I heard movement inside the toilet. The toilet is inside the bathroom and has a separate door. It filled me with horror and fear of an intruder or intruders being inside the toilet. Come on, dude. I thought here they must have entered through the unprotected window. As I did not have my prosthetic legs on and felt extremely vulnerable, I knew I had to protect Reeva and myself. I believe that when the intruders came out of the toilet, we would be in grave danger. I felt trapped as my bedroom door was locked and I have limited mobility on my stumps, end quote.
Okay.
Again, his version of events.
Mm-hmm.
He goes on to describe the moment when he claims to have realized that Reeva was in fact the person behind the toilet door. Quote, when I reached the bed, I realized that Reeva was not in bed. That is when it dawned on me that it could have been Reeva who was in the toilet. I returned to the bathroom calling her name. I tried to open the toilet door, but it was locked. I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony and screamed for help. Realized that he didn't mention anything about the cricket bat in that version.
Okay.
The prosecution cross-examined Pistorius about his version of events for 5 days. They also called a witness, the neighbor of Pistorius, who damningly claimed to have heard a man and a woman arguing.
Yeah.
And, quote, blood-curdling screams shortly before the gunshots were fired.
So there was an altercation. Yeah.
The defense cross-examined the neighbor, asking if the screams could have been Pistorius raising his voice in distress.
Like confronting the burglar.
Right.
And then rolling his car 5 times.
And the neighbor insisted that she had heard 2 voices in the argument.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecution also introduced text messages between Reeva and Pistorius, in which a few of them included accusations from Reeva that he was jealous and possessive.
Ooh.
Yeah, all this tracks.
Yeah.
In one message, she wrote, quote, I'm scared of you sometimes, of how you snap at me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not good.
The defense countered this by pointing out that 1,700 messages between the two, there had been 1,700 messages between them, and only, quote, 4 conversations were argumentative, and that all of these resolved very quickly, end quote. But, like, the fact that she said, I'm scared of you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't do most of my arguing with my husband via text message.
Also,
I like that
I
face-to-face combat.
Also, they've only been together 3 months. And in abuse situations, usually the abuser can, like, keep up the facade for about 3 months. And then that is when that facade begins to crumble.
Slip, yeah.
Because they're playing a character and they can't keep it up for longer
Yeah, it's not
than that.
sustainable. Yeah.
Right. Also, there were signs of abuse in Pistorius's past relationships. So his ex-girlfriend, Samantha Taylor, had stated publicly that, quote, he used to lock her in his house with no food for hours at a time,
Oh my God.
call her parents many times a day to track her movements,
Ugh.
and physically abuse and threaten her to the extent that she feared for her life, end
Nope.
quote.
Nope.
And those two dated for about 18 months. And so she had, like, more time to experience
Yeah.
abuse from him
Yeah.
and controlling behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the highly publicized trial, Pistorius had numerous dramatic outbursts in the courtroom, which included him sobbing, howling, and even vomiting.
Honey, something's not right.
No, that's not normal.
You're a mess.
So the Judge Masipa, ultimately ruled that Pistorius was not guilty of murder, but was guilty of culpable homicide, the equivalent of manslaughter, which I don't feel like was the right verdict. But also this judge is, like, weighing
What a jury, or not a jury, but like what will hold up.
what will hold up. A lot of race issues in this country. He's a very famous person. It was a huge deal.
Well, and also, again, I'm looking at this through an American lens. I do not understand the judicial system of other countries. I simply don't. But if this were happening in the U.S. and the state's prosecution could not prove premeditation,
Right.
then it would be a similar situation.
Right.
So, like, it tracks to me that would be a conscious choice in this case
Right.
to make sure that this person goes away for
Right.
something that will stick,
Right.
rather than risk having
Them
a
be set
conviction
free.
completely overturned. Yeah,
Right.
because it's not going to hold up over time.
So the judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison, and he served only 1 year of this sentence before being released to serve the rest of it under house arrest.
Of course.
But don't worry, there's a lot more.
Yeah. Just the privilege of it all.
Oh, also, which I did not realize until researching this case, and I thought that I was pretty, up on this case. I didn't realize that he had other charges from other incidents before this.
Were they like dropped, or charges that he'd already paid fines and done time for?
We will get to it. So he was charged with reckless endangerment involving a firearm for a separate incident where he discharged a gun inside a restaurant
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
That's kind of a big one.
and managed to skirt 2 other firearm charges, including for an incident where he shot his gun from the sunroof of his car.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Jesus.
Fucking rhinestone cowboy over here.
God, take this man's guns away.
Seriously. It's just like anywhere else in the fucking world. I mean, it's I don't know. It's just like the issues we deal with here exist in so many places.
South
and, like,
Africa and the U.S. are like very similar.
Right, and
There are a lot of parallels.
and there's just so much rooted in racism. Like if a person of color did fucking something like that, they probably wouldn't even survive seeing their day in court necessarily. It's just fucking tragic.
So the prosecution appealed and the case went back to court. This time the appeals court convicted him of murder. So the system is different in South Africa and the appeals can actually like ramp up the conviction.
The charges. Okay.
So So it's like a retrial.
Yeah.
Wow.
And their reasoning was that even if he did not realize that Reeva was the one behind the locked door, he fired with the
At
intention
someone.
of killing whoever was
Yeah,
inside.
a person. Yep.
Mhm.
And so that in and of itself is premeditated murder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then the case was sent back to Judge Masipa for sentencing. During the sentencing hearing, his defense lawyer requested that he remove his prosthetic legs in the courtroom as a fucking show pony to demonstrate his vulnerability.
You know what? Okay, there's obviously a lot to be said about disabled folks with disabilities and amputees and vulnerability.
Yeah.
But this guy is milking that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
it's really gross how
He is absolutely,
manipulating.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yes.
That's
Right.
gross.
And it really does like fucking laugh in the face. It spit in the face of very real ableism that fucks with
Yes.
people's day-to-day
Yep.
life, and especially in like application of judicial process.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's just
there are-
all around fucking gross.
Right. Exactly. There are a lot of folks with disabilities who face very real challenges when it comes to like being vulnerable, not receiving the level of care that they need, or,
Mhm.
you know, not being able to like advocate for themselves to receive the care, the quality care that they require. And like, this is not that.
Mm-mm.
This is him using this as an excuse.
Yeah, and he's exploiting that very real existence of ableist oppression
Yep.
it's really
to,
gross.
to fix his shit that he
Yep.
made.
Yep. So, they, you know, this was seen as a blatant attempt to make the judge, quote, pity his client and hand down a lighter sentence. It was like very much in the news, and like at least people called him out for doing this, but whatever. It is possible, though, that it was an effective strategy because Judge Masipa sentenced Pistorius to only 6 years in prison rather than 15, which is actually the minimum sentence for murder. And somehow he basically got the sentence of manslaughter, even though
but the
he had been
charge or whatever.
convicted of murder.
Yeah.
What the fuck is the point of that?
Yeah. So he's currently still serving his sentence. He had been out for a while under house arrest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was there when he was under house arrest for a while. And then
Were you nervous?
No. Although I do know somebody
She
who knows.
kept a golf club next to the bed
You know
to
someone who
defend
what?
against
You got
Pistorius.
to. I know somebody who's friends with his sister. But anyway.
Oh my god.
I never met her, so that's all I know. But anyway, he's serving his sentence. He will be eligible for parole next year in 2023.
Dang.
In a
Ugh.
piece for The Guardian during his trial, South African novelist Margie Orford described how, in addition to the all too common problem of domestic violence, which is very real in South Africa and everywhere around the world, the case also encapsulated the specific cultural baggage of post-apartheid South Africa. She wrote, quote, "The figure of the threatening black stranger has driven many South Africans into fortress-like housing estates, surrounded by electric fences, armed guards, and the relentless surveillance of security cameras. 1,000%. I fucking...
you
we
lived in one.
we had no choice. I mean, it was required. The school the school could not get insurance if all of their staff didn't live in
A gated community.
gated communities.
So it's an institutional segregation situation.
1,000%.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
day.
our community was obviously like non-segregated mixed race. It was a mix of white and black and
Right, but
and
it's just
everything
like
in
well, it doesn't need to
segregation
be
by
that
default.
blatant. It's like
Right.
classist segregation.
Classist, yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Finishing the quote, "The claim that Pistorius believed to be defending his home from an intruder inserts a third body into an all too familiar narrative of domestic violence. This imaginary body of the paranoid imaginings of suburban South Africa has lurked like a boogeyman at the periphery of this story. It is the threatening body, nameless and faceless, of an armed and dangerous black intruder, Perhaps this is the real fascination of the story for us. These 3 bodies, one dead, one imagined, and one on trial, will play different roles. So many men in South Africa exist in this state of macho hair-trigger tension in which action comes all too often before thought.
Not just in South Africa.
Yeah, in the U.S. too. So many parallels. This trial will have to weigh one version of macho against another. Either Steenkamp died because of Pistorius's drive for the ultimate control over a woman that comes if you kill her, or she died an innocent bystander of that other macho which has not faded in the 20 years since apartheid, where a notion of total onslaught comes from a deeply entrenched fear of the Swart Gevaar, the black peril. Swart is black and Gevaar means danger. End quote. So, I mean, that's very much true. It's like there was this like excuse, this mentality among a lot of white South Africans of like, well, there are lots of intruders. And like, there are, but at the same time, if you have enough of these like systems in place, like that's still fucking paranoia. It's still bullshit.
Ugh. Yeah, it's such like a layered and intersectional issue.
And nuanced, really.
And nuanced and systemic on 1,000 fucking levels.
And the domestic...
And is like, it's not written in stone that it's like segregation but it is targeted to the black community. Like that's how it plays out here, and that's how it plays out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And it's a little bit different there because the demographics are so different, and like 93% of the country is black. And so, whatever. In the US, that's like not the case, but we still have those same prejudices.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a very interesting case, but he fucking did it. And every time people learn that I lived in South Africa, they like ask me about him, and I'm like, oh, he fucking did it.
Yeah.
It was domestic violence. He was an abuser. This poor woman, she was starting to pick up on the fact that he was controlling and violent, but it was also so new and so fresh.
Right.
That, what there's nothing she could have done to protect herself. It was just, he's just a horrible, paranoid, violent man.
Yeah.
Controlling
and then he tapped into like manipulation and ableism and racism to defend himself. And frankly, it fucking worked.
It fucking worked. Fame, white privilege, and manipulating ableism to his benefit.
I knew he was a piece of shit, but I really hadn't spent time analyzing this case. And it is like so much more layered in how shitty he is than I even knew.
I'm glad that our fan picker requested this case because
that's nuts.
And like
it's
the
deep.
fact that he's like has athletic accomplishments as a disabled person, like, okay, great, fine.
That's
that
great.
Doesn't outweigh everything else he's done. And it certainly doesn't outweigh the value of this poor woman's life.
No, you can lose your legs and still be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I like Margie's paragraph at the end, though. It kind of ties it all together in a really concise, interesting way.
Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.